And yes, I must admit I'm feeling a sense of deja vu all over again. It definitely feels like that anti-fracking kind of territory. And I think we probably thought that, you know, we'd done the fracking stuff, we'd won, and wasn't that a wonderful example of one of my favourite hashtags, which is campaigning works, because we did see off the fracking. But we're here today, and I think we have the most wonderful slogan, no time for a coal mine. It just runs so beautifully and scans so beautifully. And it is, of course, so absolutely common sense. That's one of the things I was just talking about, how, you know, we're used to the idea and we're still being painted sometimes as the radicals, as the people who, you know, want something different. But actually, we want what the public wants. The public wants warm, comfortable, affordable homes. The public wants affordable, secure energy. The public wants a decent, clean air and clean life. And that's what all of us want. So that means it's no time for coal, and what it's time for is the sign over there, 4,500 green jobs. That's what we want. The practical, sensible thing to do for Whitehaven, for the country, for the world. We know where we are. The practical reality is there are, if we keep going at the current rate, 6 years of emissions before we bust over 1.5 degrees increase above pre-industrial levels of the climate. And back in 2015 at the Paris climate talks, I was there, and I remember the absolute exultation, because anyone who can think back that far, 2015, we weren't expecting the world to agree to keep below 1.5, and unexpectedly they did, partly through the small island nations, and this was seen as a sop to the small island nations. We're going to see if we can keep you continuing to exist. But what we know now is there's a slogan, and it's true for all of us, 1.5 to stay alive. So we're here all today saying we are determined to keep below 1.5 degrees. Now, I think coming back to the jobs point, I think there's, like so much of our politics is stuck in a dinosaur past, stuck in the 20th century. And so many different arguments are made for developments that, oh, we've got to have jobs, we've got to have jobs, they've got to have jobs. But there is a huge shortage in our society of construction workers. There's a huge shortage of nurses. There's a huge shortage of care workers. We've got to think about the world we're in now, with an ageing population, with birth rates falling off a cliff, that human skills, energy and talents are really valuable things. We need to far more have schools that treasure every child. We need to have communities that open their jobs up for everybody and make sure everyone, whatever their skills and talents, have a place. But that doesn't mean frantically going around creating coal mines. It's saying, what do we actually need to have done, and making sure people can do jobs that are fulfilling, well paid, and that are actually doing things we need. So we really need to turn this discussion around and think about what we need are developments that care for people, that look after people, that educate people, not developments that both trash the planet. And I was hearing tell Sellafield has 900 job vacancies. So we don't need, Whitehaven doesn't in any way need this coal mine. What it needs is a decent economy that works for people.
Yeah.
And you know, the structure of that economy, it was mentioned that I'm in the House of Lords. And if you ask me to give one word description of what it's like being in the House of Lords, my answer to that is strange. Very, very strange. But it does mean that I get to, across the dispatch box, look eye to eye with people like Lord Callanan, who is our Energy and Climate Minister, formerly our Bays Minister. Now, it's quite interesting because the House of Lords is supposed to be polite compared to the Commons. But Lord Callanan, I think he holds Jenny Jones, my fellow Greener here, and I responsible for the fact that he has to stand up every day just about and go, yes, I really believe in net zero by 2050, and yes, my government will deliver net zero by 2050, even though at heart he's a climate change denier. And so just this week, you can see it on my social media feed, I leapt up to my feet and we were debating the Drax, the hideous burning, the idea that we can cut down old growth forests in North America, ship them across the Atlantic and burn them in the UK, and somehow or other that's supposed to be carbon neutral. Because trees are going to grow over decades, if you're lucky, and eventually absorb that carbon decades later. So I was facing Lord Callanan and we were talking about biofuels. And I said, carbon in biofuels, couldn't we do things like put them into the soil, use them for other good purposes? And it was really quite a moment because he turned around and said, well, I'm really going to upset the noble ladies, that's how we talk in this place, the noble ladies' social media strategy and agree with her. And I was like, yes, I'm here looking him in the eye, forcing him to acknowledge that there's better things to do with carbon than burn it. Yay! So, looking back to all of those fracking camps, all of the places that I know so many people here, I recognise so many faces today, we've been. What I want to say, and I'm going to say in a second, give yourselves a cheer, because well done for everything that you've done and that you're doing. It's up to you that we stop the fracking, so give yourselves a cheer. Yay! But I know that it sometimes feels like a thankless task. You've been at the anti-fracking, you're at the anti-coal, you might be at the anti-Drax, and we're fighting and fighting and fighting, and still they keep doing what are just blatantly, obviously stupid things. We're clearly the common sense and they're doing these stupid things. But the fact is, of course, that there's a famous phrase about when you're seeing a changing of the times, that the old has died and the new has yet to be born, and there's some really toxic things in the interregnum. And that's where we are now, and that this idea of a new coal mine in 2023 is a toxic thing. There's no doubt about that. But the thing that I know, and I really like to focus on hope, because it is really crucial to focus on hope, that where we are now is profoundly unstable. And that is actually really good news, because where we are now is absolutely awful. The fact is that we are trashing the planet, and we have a society that's racked with poverty and inequality, so many people who can't keep a roof over their head, can't keep food on the table. Around the world, there's nearly 1 billion people regularly go to bed hungry, while we take a whole lot of what could be good food and feed it to animals in factory farms. All of that is going to change because it is unstable, and that's good news. So I'm going to invite you to run a little thought experiment, which just imagine we created a wonderful society, a society where everyone had a warm, comfortable, secure home, everyone who wanted a job had a good, solid job, and then we found there was a climate emergency. Now that would be really politically difficult, because you'd be saying to people, we've got to change everything, you've got this utopia, but we're going to have to change it all. But we have a message now that's really clear that says we can look after people and planet. There's enough resources on this planet for every person to have a decent life, for us to look after the climate and restore nature if we share them out fairly. That means changing everything. It means changing our education system. It means changing our economic system. It means changing the way we treat each other as people. But we can do that. And people sometimes ask me, how do you know you're going to win? I don't know that we're going to win. What I know is that centrist politics, leaving things much as they are now, is dead. What I know is that we have this hopeful prospect of a society that meets everyone's needs and looks after nature and the climate and is sustainable in the long term. The other side of politics is the far right, and I would include our current government in the far right label. They say that it's a difficult, dangerous world. We've got to do what we can for us and ours and shove those others away, whoever those others are, build walls to keep them out, or horrendously ship them off to Rwanda. That's their message. Their message is built on fear. It's built on the idea that you just have one leader and you all just march after that leader who's quite possibly in a uniform sitting on a white horse. You don't have to think, you just march after the leader. But we know that politics should be what everyone does, not have done to them. That by people getting together, as you're doing today, as so many of you do in so many different places, democracy, if you ask me to come and talk about algae, I will say the answer is democracy. The answer is always democracy. And democracy is people getting involved, engaged, doing things together, acting together to change the world for the better. And it's built on hope. And hope is a stronger, more productive, more effective emotion than fear. So I don't know that we're going to win. I'm confident that we can win. And I know that history is not pre-written. It's made by the actions of people. And a few canines as well. Coming along to offer their support as well. So the actions that you're taking today, you're building the new and better world. And what you're doing today is doing politics at the purest kind of form. You're simply expressing, getting together with people of like mind and making a difference. So thank you for everything you've done, everything you're doing. And to build in a little bit of emotional blackmail now, thank you for everything you're going to do in the future, because I know that you're going to do that in the future. The Green Party, we're here as the political wing. I'm sitting there in the really weird House of Lords, doing my best to remember to call the Archbishops of Canterbury and York the Right Reverend Primate, and the other bishops the Right Reverend Prelate, and getting my dukes and my viscounts and everything else sorted out. I called him your viscount and earl the other day. Tut, 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 tut. It's a very strange environment, but what I want to finish off by noting is that I'm here for all of you as a resource. I can put down 12 written questions a week. I can initiate debates. I can raise issues. So feel free. I'm very easy to find on social media and internet and everything. Feel free to reach out to me. I can force the government to, I used to say I can force them to answer questions with written questions. I now say I can force them to provide some text in response to your written question, which is not quite the same thing, but nonetheless it's a start. So the reason why I'm sitting there on those weird padded leather benches with all the gilding around me and, the gold thrown down at the end and everything, the reason why I'm sitting there is so that I can represent you. So regard me as a resource, everything you're doing. Let's all make politics what we do, not have done to us. And I know that we can build a world in which everyone has a decent life and we look after planet and nature. And that's what we're doing today. So thank you very much and well done.
Yay! Thank you, Natalie. That's a really good offer. We will be taking you up, I don't doubt. Question?